Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Data People workshop on job descriptions through writing jaw-dropping job ads. My name's Amit, and while we give it a minute for everyone to log into this workshop, I'd love to hear where you're from. Our previous workshops have had people as far away as New Zealand, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Switzerland. Where are you calling in from? And make sure you write into everybody when you're writing in. So we've got Seattle, Raleigh, Bay Area, Nashville, Tennessee. We do have South Africa representing again, as do we with London. Fantastic. Ghana. This is a very, very international group, Alyssa.
Yeah, wow, really? All over the place. Are we a letdown that we're from the same place, that we're both in New York?
We're both in New York. I know, right? Well, I like to think of us as right in the middle, although we're absolutely not in the middle of everything
Yeah,
that's happening.
yeah, and we're in very diverse parts of New York. You're downtown, I'm uptown. That's pretty far away.
That's pretty far away. I think folks will get going. And while we wait for folks to join, a couple of reminders about, and if you're new to a Data People workshop, just a few things for all of you. One, this is a workshop. It's not a webinar. We're going to get very tactical. We're going to make sure you participate. And in all of these sessions, we've found we learn just as much from all of you. You're all phenomenal members of the community in talent acquisition. And we want to learn from you, and you want to learn from each other. So light up the chat, participate. Let's be part of this together. The second thing that I want to sort of talk about is we're going to talk. Wait, Amanda says she can't hear me. Can everyone hear me? Are
I,
others able to hear me? Okay, good. I don't think I don't think it's on my end. So, well, thank you for confirming that you can all hear me. By the way, I noticed some of you in the chat are writing into hosts and panelists only. Just a reminder to set it to everybody so we can all see it, we can all participate, and I know folks will continue to join in. But let's get going. Today, I'm here joined with me today by Alyssa. Alyssa runs customer success here at Data People. You've been here a year. Alyssa, how's it going?
so far, so good. Everyone has been wonderful, and it's been really fun learning all about TA across all different industries, different countries. It's been really great. Yeah, and this is my very first webinar, so I am excited to be here with you all today.
It's a workshop.
No, workshop, sorry.
That's right. But Alyssa, I would ask you, but you were new to talent acquisition, and now you've been immersed. You're almost a veteran. What's the first thing that surprised you
Hmm.
as you came to Data People?
I think the most surprising thing is really the impact of a job ad, both on the candidate experience, so as someone looking for a job, but then also from the recruiting experience. And I think I had thought it was such a simple thing from a hiring manager perspective for so long. And then to see it in the data, obviously with data people, it's been really impressive to see how when you make some tweaks to it, you can really optimize both sides of the coin. So I'm really excited to dive into that today.
Fantastic. And you're a tennis nerd.
Yeah.
So where in New York City can you possibly play tennis?
Well, I will give everyone the hot tip, which is actually to play on Randall's Island, which is this small island off of the northeast side of Manhattan. They have this huge tennis facility by John McEnroe, and it's free for the public during the summer. So that is where you can find me most weekday mornings.
That's a great tip.
Good.
Well, everyone, I hope there's other tennis nerds out there. And if you are, holler on the chat because, the
Yeah,
US Open's starting in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be exciting.
cannot wait.
So I want to kick it off by saying today you are not talent acquisition or HR professionals. You're not TA leaders. Today you are Don Draper. You are Peggy Olson. You are Madman. You're an advertiser. And I want us to imagine ourselves in those shoes. I want us to imagine ourselves as thinking about how do we attract attention? How do we make our jobs into the ads that they deserve to be? Now, are people on this chat Mad Men fans? Alyssa, are you a Mad Men fan?
I'm a
Favorite
huge
character?
Madden fan. I definitely see myself more as a Peggy Olson though. Donna gets a little crazy towards the end.
Me too. Me too. Peggy has both the creativity and the competence to kind of carry the whole show. And isn't that like the analogy of our times? It's always the one competent person, and then you know the dude in top getting all the credit.
Some guy napping in his office.
Just take it easy. What about the audience? Are you guys are you fans of advertising? Are you fans of Mad Men? Are you ready to be advertisers today as we walk through this together? Also, can everyone still hear me? Thank you, Bridget. And thanks for everybody for writing it. So let's get going. If you haven't watched Mad Men, it's an excellent show, maybe from a little bit from 10 years ago. Uh, it's a
Yeah.
drama about advertising agencies in the 1960s and 70s. That's a lot of fun. So let's get going. The reason you've got to be uh, advertisers is the truth is that more people see a company's jobs than its homepage. And we ran a study. We found on average, whether you're a B2B company, a B2C company, your jobs get almost 1.5 times the views across all the various sites. Because what happens with your jobs is they get taken everywhere. They get taken to LinkedIn, they get taken to Indeed, they get taken to hundreds of other job boards, they get crawled, they get scraped. People share them on social media. You have many, many jobs, you have only one homepage. And the truth is, oftentimes for many of us, the way somebody learns about our company to begin with is a job ad. It's the way somebody figures out, like, who we are, what our company does. So it's a powerful instrument. And imagine the amount of time we spend on every pixel of our company's website, on every piece of our Facebook advertising or Google advertising. We don't spend that kind of time on our job ads. And today, I'm not going to ask you to spend more time. I'm going to ask you to just, well, our hope is we're going to leave you with some tips on how do you just instrument ads in a really compelling way. Maybe you want to use some AI, but how do we get there in a really thoughtful way? And how do we get, whether it's AI, whether it's a tool like Datapeople, how do we get these tools to ultimately deliver for us the ads that we deserve? So when a candidate learns about your company on LinkedIn through a job ad, they're wowed, they're excited, and they understand what they're getting into. They understand your culture. Alyssa, you saw Datapeople in your job ad. Like, what did you think? Like, what is that? Where did you see that? Do you remember where you saw the ad for the job that you currently have?
Yes, I did. I saw it on LinkedIn, which is interesting because so we both live in New York. People's based in New York. I'm both very involved with the startup scene, but yeah, I hadn't heard of Data People before I had been on LinkedIn. And so then after I saw it on LinkedIn and applied, I think it was once I got my phone screen. That's when I really actually dug into your website and did some of my due diligence and proper research. But yeah, I'd say that LinkedIn is definitely becoming more and more prominent when we're talking about actually marketing your brand.
I'm curious in the audience, when was the last time you learned about a company for the first time through the job? Can you remember it? Like, can you be like, wait a second, what is this cool company? Now I look at jobs all day, so I learn about a lot of companies. But every now and then you learn about something really, really cool. Somebody doing something really, and Leoba, thanks for chiming in. Yesterday, I'm not surprised. Not surprised. Jobs are everywhere. One of the things that we studied when we have lots of data. We have the data of 100 million jobs, and we're constantly looking at how candidates react to jobs. And so on the left, you'll see there's a heat map. A candidate, the way they react to jobs isn't that different to the way you react to, a resume from a candidate. We don't have time to go through every word. And so we kind of skim it and gravitate to certain things. And what we found was, you'll see sort of the darker areas in this job ad where the candidates tend to gravitate to first. They gravitate to things like the title. They gravitate to things like, comp and benefits. They gravitate to who they would report to in the org and who would report to them. And they don't, you have a laundry list of responsibilities and requirements, and that's not something that everybody cares about, but they kind of gravitate to the 2 or 3 critical pieces that really matter. I want to ask you, does your company have a huge amount of boilerplate when you put out the jobs? Like, does it start with this big about text section? Does it end with a lot of it? And how easy is it at your jobs for the candidate to find these critical pieces of information that they need to get to? Alyssa, you see this all the time, right? When we're looking at jobs for the first time, how often, like, just give me a side, spitball. Like, How often is these jobs like written with a candidate in mind?
Not as frequently as I would like. I will say though that a lot of our clients are learning from the market, and we're actually seeing more of a trend of even putting responsibilities and qualifications higher up and the about the company lower down because everyone's realizing candidates aren't really spending time reading about us. Really, what they care about at this point in the pipeline is what the job will actually be and whether or not they're qualified to do it. So I've seen that over the past 6 months, I would say, becoming more and more of a trend.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've noticed that too. It's just like, and especially people are like reading it of on map on mobile, they really want to get to the answer in a very small real estate. I mean, my phone is huge, but still, most people don't sort of get the biggest phone possible. And they try to get to it in the smallest real estate and really get to a job. So let's talk a little bit about understanding candidate behavior. Now, I just want to be clear, I do not endorse smoking. I don't condemn it either. I don't endorse it. Uh, and the good part is in Mad Men, it's all floral herbal smoke making cigarettes. So it's easy. But let's get to. I want to give it to you, Alyssa, to talk a little bit about. We're going to have a little bit of quiz. We're going to ask you things that we've looked in our data, and see what you think. So we're going to ask you a few questions, just four simple questions now. Alyssa, take it away. Question one.
My question for you all, and please throw it in the chat, is will preferred qualifications help you with candidate quality?
What do you think? What do you think, audience?
Take a wild stab.
Kevin says no. Melissa says no. There's a bunch of no's. There's a bunch of yeses. Yeah, it's confusing. I'm gonna be honest. Especially right now, I'm sure a lot of you are facing that like there's this huge increase in the volume of candidates coming through your pipe. And sometimes you think maybe we should add some qualifications to drive up signal to noise. But does it work that way? Not always.
So really what you find is that a lot of qualified candidates will actually opt out because they'll see a few qualifications that they don't meet and then they won't apply. The other side of it is they'll get a lot of one-click applies so that people who aren't qualified are just quickly skimming the job ad and they'll go ahead and apply, and you'll get people who aren't actually qualified to do the role. So we see this most often when it comes to women applying for roles, and I think a lot of us have heard this before, right? Women are more likely to apply to a role if they hit all of the qualifications, whereas men are more likely to apply regardless. And so the more qualifications you have, the more that means that people who are very qualified for their job are going to opt out of it. We also see that a lot of times preferred qualifications have more privileged qualifications. So for example, an extra certification or a specific university. And that might cause people to not apply for the role as well because they're like, oh, there's going to be people who are better qualified based off of the preferred qualifications. And so we want to make sure that we have the minimum qualifications for the role that to do the role effectively. And then you can compare and contrast candidates throughout the actual hiring process when you get to know them beyond just their resume. So my second
Question.
question, yeah.
Go ahead. Question two.
So our job ad title is a critical part of the job ad.
Now we're getting some yeses. Yes,
Yeah,
Diane says. Yes,
yeah,
Kevin. I think people know the answer to this. But this one's a hard one though, right?
yeah.
Because still so often like your internal comp team, your HR team is like, oh, internally we call this accountant too. That's what it has to be on the website. That's what it has to be on LinkedIn. How do we get around that?
Because everyone is absolutely right. They are so critical to the job. And it really, this is where I actually want you to put your marketing hat on and think about it from that perspective. Because when we're talking about job ads, we're not just talking about what they'll be called internally once they get started. We're talking about what are candidates searching for on LinkedIn or Indeed or Perplexity? What are your competitors calling that job that the candidate is looking at? And does it make sense when you think about what the market is actually asking of people? And so there's two main areas with the job title that are pretty critical. So one, again, is that search visibility. So historically, that's been for SEO keywords, right? So making sure that you have the right keywords to put your title, your job in front of the right candidates. But we're also seeing that now with all of the different AI tools as well. So they're calling it AEO, right? So answer engine optimization, making sure that all of these engines are picking up the right things as well. And it also impacts the applications. So if someone's searching for a role, they're going to be looking for similar roles that have the same titles. They're less likely to apply for your job if it's an internal title that doesn't really resonate with them. So we want to make sure, again, that we're reaching the right candidates for the role. I will say as well that I hear a lot of times that we get pushback from hiring managers when they're the ones who don't want to change the job title. A really simple fix to that is you can just say in the job ad itself, internally, we refer to this position as X, Y, and Z. And that really helps make sure you can still optimize for search while being transparent with your candidates.
That's right. That's a really good question on the chat by Diane, which is, would it be better, coming to the previous question, is it better to list preferred qualifications as part of the responsibilities rather than the requirements? And actually, Diane, I love that idea. The only risk here is you don't want it to feel like the responsibility section is getting overwhelming because, too often the responsibility section is like 17 bullets, and starts to get a lot. I think there's some things that, as you think about sort of setting up the recruiting process, it's okay to start long and then trim out into what becomes the ad. And you don't have to throw the other elements away, but rather those are things that you're bringing up in the phone screen, you're bringing up in the interview, you're maybe even transforming them into suggested interview questions that you can kind of arm your hiring manager with as you get into that. But your qualifications and your responsibilities should really be the most minimal ones that you're feeling are absolutely critical to the job and absolutely critical to the candidate you're looking for.
And I'll say as well, sometimes I see that hiring managers want to include preferred qualifications, and then they're complaining that they get too many applications. And something to consider is, are those actually preferred or should that be the minimum? And so maybe then including that as the minimum qualification will get you more qualified candidates as well. So I think that having that harder conversation with the hiring manager is also super important.
When you talk about job titles, these are some of the common mistakes I see with our internal unoptimized job title, like putting a software engineer 2. The search engines don't do well with that. And the bigger problem with that is when you have things like that, your job shows up in every software engineering role. So if you're searching for a C++ role, if you're searching for an embedded software, the search engines aren't very smart. If you're looking for a specific type of role, a Python software engineering role, show up there. Let's be very clear. You'll find that the central theme of all of this is clarity to candidates. Like make it as easy as possible for the right candidate to self-select into a job and easy as possible for them to find the job. The one thing that drives me bananas is when companies get cute with job titles. Like they go the other way. They're like customer happiness, storyteller. Like frame the job in a way that people are likely to find it, not in a way that sort of use the ad copy element in the job description, but the title is really the hook to be as searchable and as clear as possible. Even if you're sourcing for the job, they want to know very quickly, is this something I want to pay attention to and read into? So question 3, Alyssa, take it away.
Do soft skills improve a job ad?
This is a tough one. This is a tough one. So Kevin says yes, and I can see the confusion that's going to happen here because so often soft skills are so critical to a job. We need people to have great communication skills. We need people to have great problem solving skills. So shouldn't we be clear about it in a job ad? Alyssa, what do you think?
No, they don't improve a job ad. So the truth is that they create a lot of ambiguity and they confuse candidates. And that's because we all come from different experiences. And so my definition of a soft skill may be different from your definition. So we see this most often when we think about things like great communication skills. You could see great communication skills on a job ad for an engineer, for a VP of marketing, for a data analyst, because great communicating effectively with your peers in the workplace is important to any job you have. But it doesn't really add any value to the actual job itself. And so instead of saying great communication skills for an engineer, maybe really what you mean is that they can communicate effectively in comments in the code. Whereas for someone who works in marketing, maybe you need to write a qualification about how they're going to need to be able to present effectively with PowerPoint presentations, right? And so the more specific you are about what you mean by communication skills, the more qualified candidates you'll have applying to the role who have those specific type of communication skills. And then the second issue is that they add a lot of length and not a lot of value. So if you can see the same soft skill on any job ad, really it's just adding noise and and making it a little bit harder for the candidates to focus on the meat and potatoes of the job ad itself. So again, like an example here is great attention to detail. My great attention to detail when I'm combing through a PowerPoint and making sure everything is perfectly aligned in the middle, probably isn't the same thing as our research team who is not making PowerPoint presentations all the day, and they're not going to care about that type of detail, but they will care about details when it comes to the way that you present a graph in a data analysis, right? And so again, being more specific about the type of skill you actually need the candidate to do.
That makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of great points in the chat. So Kevin brings up a great point that says, look, sometimes you need to show the soft skill, but tell me specifically what you want to do with that soft skill, which I think aligns with what you were saying, Alyssa. Like, let's say you're looking for an engineer, rather than say great communication skills, maybe you're looking for experience building very clear technical documentation. Like that's a tangible thing that you kind of like point out, right? Or you're looking for, a finance executive. I want you to have had experience presenting analyses to leadership teams. Like one of the ways to almost think about soft skills is to think about it like the symmetry with the resume. If someone on their resume said, I'm a really hard worker, would you pay a lot of credence to that? You'd be like, no, like prove it, right? Prove that you've worked in environments that have challenged you and all of that. And the same thing. So when you ask for something very generic, they're also unclear, how do I demonstrate that sort of generic idea in the course of this process? And Sudhir makes an excellent point. Sometimes soft skills are a reflection of a company's culture. And you're exactly right, Sudhir. Actually, sometimes having a lot of soft skills ends up kind of sending the wrong signal about your culture, that you're very formal, that you're very hard charging, that you're very intense. And that doesn't help especially when you're trying to build, a broad and, diverse group of candidate pools that, that you can bring some new ideas, some new folks into your organization. So now I love this example from one of our customers. Even taking something like a warehouse manager and making it very, very rooted in specific, tangible qualifications, it makes such a difference. And these are jobs that can often be so poorly written. And so I love the work that our teams, that some of our customers do in really having their brand resonate in every job they write and having that resonate in every sentence of the job description. So if you're on anybody from the Conagra team, well done. You're doing a great job. So let's talk the last question, Alyssa. What do you think?
So should jobs contain benefits bullet points?
What do we
So in the
think?
job ad, what does everyone think? I see a yes.
Now I'm going to ask you, make this question more specific. Have benefits bullets or point people via a link to your benefits site on your careers page? What do we think? What's better? Beth says both. Brett says bullets. Renica says just the benefits site link. And what do you think, Alyssa? What's the answer here?
I think they should always include benefits bullets. And this is because a lot of times candidates aren't doing the deep dive research into your website. And I see this all the time where the recruitment marketing team maybe has made this beautiful benefits area of the website and it clarifies your values and your goals and all of that wonderful jazz. But the truth is the candidates aren't on your website at this point. A lot of the times they're on LinkedIn, they're on Indeed. And those searches are getting smarter. And so they're picking up benefits and showing them to candidates based off of the type of benefits that the candidate is interested in. So it's really now focused more on the candidate experience itself, more so than on the company. And it does help reinforce your brand directly within LinkedIn. And going back to our very first point of this is the first time a lot of people are hearing about your company, being able to really emphasize your values and what you stand for. So I know one example of this is one of our clients, when we started working with them, we noticed again, amazing benefits website. It was so great. I looked at the benefits. I was like, wow, I think that they had like subsidized childcare or something, and I was like, I never see this. Like, this is a great benefit. But if I looked at their job on LinkedIn, it wasn't there. And knowing that, I'm like, well, that probably means a lot of women aren't applying or opting out because they don't see any benefits. And they're like, oh, I need to make sure that I have a work-life balance because yada yada yada. And I think that would have been a really great way for them to stand out from the competition of being able to promote the benefit and also reinforce their values and what they stand for. So making it front and center instead of hiding it on your website, so that then from the beginning the candidate knows what to expect rather than discovering it after they get into your pipeline.
I want to be clear about actually one thing. This is like a classic. Let's put our advertiser hat on again. Like let's imagine you're not a recruiter. The real advantage of benefits is that the whole job description is often about what we want from the candidate. I want you to do these things. I want you to have these skills. I want you to bring these preferred requirements. So subliminally, the benefits section, even if your benefits are boring, even if they're healthcare and like a 401k, even if you're not even matching 401k, the benefits are the first place where you say, this is not an evaluation. This is a partnership. And we are going to share with you how we think about the candidate. And even if that is short, you don't have to list every single benefit. The benefits don't have to be sexy. In fact, the foosball tables and all of that crazy stuff nobody wants. List your benefits as just tangible things that people, even if it's expected for the job, it's the first time in the JD you're talking about them. And that has value. That has its signaling. And that tells a lot about your culture. And we see those jobs do 5 to 10% better. And that's why. Alrighty, now I have to say, all of you more than passed the quiz, but we learned some things along the way. And thank you all for sharing. So now let's just move to, I want to show you an example of another one of our customers, Electric Hydrogen. And they do this beautiful job with their benefits. Like they keep it short, it's super thoughtful. They then talk about sort of, you know that there's more on their website if you went there. But if you saw this, you're like, oh, this is a company that, it's wholesome. It's thoughtful. It's something, they're balanced. And I like the way they do that. So let's now talk a little bit about job ads versus job descriptions. Now, all of you probably have job descriptions. Maybe you have job profiles in Workday. Maybe you have internal job descriptions that your HR team writes or comp teams hold. And those are critical. Those are big formal compliance documents. Well, the number one mistake we see with job ads is they accidentally or inadvertently make it out into the wild. And that's where 5 minutes, 5 minutes of your time, your hiring manager's time, can save you weeks and weeks of stress and more by making it into a job ad, by making the title searchable, by making the critical details, by making it approachable and welcoming, and by really making the job about an ad that a candidate can experience. We've released a really cool feature about this called flagship jobs. So flagship jobs are a great way to save your internal job descriptions, your job profiles and architecture in Datapeople. And then you can use templates to convert a flagship job in 30 seconds into a job ad. So you can take the core elements of your job internal JD, and surround it, sandwich it with the elements of your job ad, like about the company and your benefits, and make it something beautiful. And you still do need to edit it. And hopefully our editor can really help you there. But our goal is it should take you no more than 5 minutes. It should work right in your applicant tracking system, and it should really make it sing. And having templates makes such a big deal. It lets you, rather than have like a PDF EVP sitting on the side, make that EVP into a living, breathing template that every single hiring manager is using, every single recruiter is using, and saving you a lot of time so that every job is high fidelity and it's a real ad for your company and a real ad for the culture that you're aspiring to build. So now I want to take you to the last section here. We're going to make this fun as well. 7 common mistakes. And now the promise here with all of us in this room is we're going to be honest. So if you make this mistake, I want you to say, I make it, or if you've seen somebody make this mistake recently, I want you to say, no, we're not shaming anybody. We just want to know that these mistakes don't happen because you don't know the answers. The mistakes happen because large organizations at scale it's about how do we instrument the right processes so that these things don't happen. So let's start with 7 common mistakes. Mistake number 1, unclear hiring locations. And this is a really big problem today. When we did this study in last couple of years, we published it, we'll share it out. One of the things we found was the, remote jobs get so many more applications. And in fact, that just continues to increase. Hybrid jobs are getting so many more applications, and on-site jobs get fewer. And what's often happening is we're writing hybrid jobs that are accidentally getting misclassified as remote, or writing on-site jobs that are getting misclassified as hybrid, or vice versa. And it creates a bad candidate pool because you're getting people who are opting in for the wrong type of job. And it creates a bad candidate experience because they get to the phone screen and they're like, wait a second, this is not a remote job, or this is not a hybrid job. And it's frustrating. Now, has this happened to you? Has this happened to a candidate that you've had to deal with? I'm curious because this is a real problem. And the reason it's a real problem is Indeed and LinkedIn have been constantly releasing guidelines and hashtags, and it's hard to keep up. It's hard to make sure you fit into their specific requirements. Alyssa, are you seeing this happen as you work with customers in job descriptions?
Yeah, it's one of the most important pieces that we cover both in training for recruiters and for hiring managers, because it is the most frustrating thing when you think you have a really qualified candidate and then they realize, oh, it's actually 5 days a week in office, and I thought it was only 1 day a week, and I actually can't do that because I'm actually located 2 hours away. And so I think the more specific you are, the better it is both for the candidate so that they're applying for a role they can actually do, and then also for yourself so that you're not wasting time on candidates who can't actually fill your role.
The second mistake people make is pay transparency violations. And it's not just we forget to put the salary ranges in. Like the number one reason people forget to put salary ranges in is you write a job and then you change the location last minute and boom, it's gone. Suddenly you're no longer compliant. One of the really big problems with salary trans violations is not every state looks at it the same way. Some states just require benefits. Some states require salary ranges. Some states require you to even articulate leave. Washington is particularly harsh. Washington and Colorado have been issuing really big fines. And so that's just painful. Illinois has started to do audits, which is really driving people crazy. But the really big problem with this is the recruiting problem. Jobs that have salary ranges do way better. They get a much better candidate pool than jobs that don't. It's why many companies have said, we're just going to have salary ranges in all of our jobs. And this has become a real issue. So if you can minimize these violations, if you can minimize these jobs, it just means that your jobs are going to do better. You're going to get candidates faster. Your LinkedIn and Indeed ad dollars will go further. And that's really good. Now, I want to point out one of the comments that Kayla made on the previous slide, which is she's found that LinkedIn can often mislabel a position as remote on-site. You're exactly right, Kayla. That's because LinkedIn has very specific guidelines and use the hashtags. And so the best way to make sure LinkedIn doesn't do that is to use the right hashtags. In our app, we police it for you. So we detect whether a job is remote or hybrid or on-site. We ask you to put the right hashtag. But this is really important because it's something that's really creating confusion with candidates. Are you worried about pay transparency? Is that a conversation that's happened in your organizations? And Alyssa, is that a conversation that's happening across as you talk to customers?
Oh yeah, and I think the hardest thing is really everyone just keeping up with the actual violations. And sometimes if I notice that, oh, something slipped through the cracks and I'll let a customer know, they get frustrated. They're like, oh, legal is supposed to keep me up to date on all of this, but they're juggling so many things. It's hard to keep up. But um, I would say even a lot of customers now, what they're doing is they're just putting pay transparency across all of their jobs, at least in the US. And so that way that they don't have to worry about it wherever they're posting.
one of the big issues is that pay transparency is coming to Europe in 2026. And we're seeing already a lot of companies get ahead of that because it's going to be more complicated with all the different geos and the different pay rates, and it's going to take work. And so but the really good news for all of you in recruiting is by and large, pay transparency has been really good in driving the right signals. It's been really good for candidate experience. It's been good for creating a better expectation matching early in the process so you don't get to the offer and be like, wait a second, we're way off. And so this is generally creating the right alignment, but it does require plumbing to get it right early on. Mistake number 3, poorly defined junior roles. This drives me crazy. And I don't think anyone knows how to write junior roles really well because if you're hiring for like maybe a junior salesperson or junior person in manufacturing, sometimes you're like, what do we ask for? Like, what qualifications do we even put in there? We don't have that many qualifications to ask for at that level for an entry level role. And I wish they would be like, okay, that's the thing, and we'll stop there. But what inevitably happens is they decide, let's put in a whole lot of soft skill fluff and let's put it, and it ends up sending such a difficult environment. Now, have you seen jobs like this? And please be honest, have you posted jobs like this or have hiring managers of yours posted jobs like this? Alyssa, have you seen jobs like this out there in the market?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is they don't really know what to put for the qualifications when the expectation is that they don't have a lot because it's a junior role, often especially for entry level roles. And so they tend to overcompensate by listing every possible thing just to make sure that they have a qualified person applying.
Yeah, I like, this one. It starts with excitement to join our in-office culture. I'm not so sure, but you'll notice there's a bunch of highlights, and that is our app highlighting what are the kinds of things that are going to create problems and asking you to either change it or get rid of it. Like intellectually curious, high IQ. Oof. What are the kinds of things? How is every candidate going to read this the same way? Are they going to feel welcome to apply? Shorter is better, clarity is the best. And what I don't like is like it puts Salesforce and outreach, like this is a tangible thing. They put it all the way at the end after boo. Why don't like, how do we tighten this into 3 really thoughtful bullets that allows people to come away thinking, I know what this job is and what is asked of me. I want to show you an example of someone who did this really well. So an example of someone that does this really well is like it's a similar job. It's a junior sales role, and they made their bullets just so simple. It's 2 years of experience. It's experience in specific areas. It's experience managing property. They limit it to the very, very core of the job, and they use the real estate of the job to instead talk about the benefits, talk about the group you'll be joining, the hiring manager you'll have, and it becomes a much better candidate experience because you're getting clarity and you're not getting inundated with things that might confuse you. Mistake number 4, poorly drafted senior roles. Now, there is this misconception. Senior candidates don't read job descriptions. We source them. Is that true? Alyssa, you're a senior candidate. You came in with lots of experience. Is that true?
No, it's not true. And again, especially today, I think more and more we're seeing the senior roles posted publicly. I think the biggest challenge I see from customers is when they tend to be more senior roles. That's also when the senior executives are the ones crafting it. And a lot of times the recruiting team doesn't feel like they have the ability to push back on the senior positions. And so they don't want to offend the executive by saying, hey, this isn't going to get you the candidates you need. So then they wind up having a really poorly drafted role. Uh,
Even if you're sourcing for this role, even if it's a confidential role that you're only sharing with a few people through an executive headhunter or through LinkedIn sourcing, that first time they open the message, they open the email, they open that job, is the first time you're having a chance to kind of make a pitch and make a case to this incredible candidate that you want to bring onto your company. And it's a chance for us to really bring your candidate experience and your employer brand to bear. So here's a classic example. This is a director level role in supply chain with a bunch of SAP experience. And it's a classic example of what I see when I look at senior jobs in the market. It starts off with very intangible items. We talked about analytical, problem-solving skills, presentation skills. Yep, all great, but when you think about the eyes of a candidate, they're kind of like washing through it. Then the first point is like a preferred requirement, but every SAP acronym known. And it's not clear, do I have to know these? Do I, do I need to know some of these more than others? Is there a specific need? Then you get to CPA and or MBA. And that's a very small group of people that have a CPA and an MBA and are looking for a supply chain director role. So what are we really trying to get to? What are we really trying to kind of build? If it's CPA is really important, if there's more of an accounting bent, great. If an MBA is really helpful, more of a business bent, great. Try to figure out like where your audience is likely to be. It's almost like when you're dealing with a senior role, think about the ideal candidate profile and then broaden it out and think about where we could be. In fact, in one of our last workshops, we had it, which we did on AI. We talked about how you can use AI, and we gave you some prompts to show people. I'm going to ask Brett and Erin if they can post it in the chat to show people how they can build potential candidate profiles as they're writing the job. So that helps them understand the trade-offs of what if they really want to be writing for and how do you advertise. It's so much easier if you can advertise to a person than advertise to the world at large. We have to speak to our audience. I want to show you an example of a really great senior responsibilities and qualifications section. This is one from one of our customers in the pharma space. It's a senior role, also in supply chain, in director, also has accounting and MBA requirements. And I'm not thrilled about this, but at least you're not asking for a CPA. They're showing where they're leaning. What I like is how tangible everything is. It's very tangible. It starts with how many years of experience you need. It sort of starts from like the critical pieces and then goes down. And it kind of tells you exactly the kinds of things I need in a way that I can show it to you on my resume, in a way I can show it to you on that first phone screen that you do. And so it really helps a thoughtful candidate to opt into the role rather than be confused by what the role is asking or confused as what my chances are of being a good fit for this job. Kind of curious about the audience. What prevents really great senior roles from being advertised at your company? Is it the hiring manager? Is it the process? Is it your comp leveling? What holds you back? I'm going to pause and wait for people to write in the chat. Who says hiring manager? Steer says confidentiality.
Yeah,
Tell me
that is
more,
a great one.
Steer. Tell me more. What confidentiality? But you still have to write a JD, don't you? You still have to send it to someone, don't you? So how do you, what prevents it from being a great JD? And I think it really sometimes comes down to like hiring managers and our internal process. So Sudhir, I was asking how, and I'm asking the group as large, when you have a poorly drafted senior role, why does it go down? Why does it go wrong at your organization? Does it go wrong because of the hiring managers, or does it go wrong because of like the comp teams trying to enforce a certain like level, or does it go wrong because we just don't take the time?
I do see that a lot with the leveling as well, where especially for the more senior roles, making sure that it's actually the role that the hiring manager needs to hire for. And if they don't get, approval for a certain level, but the qualifications and responsibilities aren't what the hiring manager is actually looking for, then there's a bit of a disconnect. And there's a little tension that you have to work through in order to get the right candidate.
That's right. So let's go to the next. So one of the things that we talked about was the preferred requirements creating a problem. And so we actually did a study on it. And we found that when you add preferred requirements to a job, more than a couple, your candidate pool size goes down. Maybe some of you are thinking, oh, that'd be awesome in this environment. We're getting too many candidates. We also found that the number of female candidates went down by almost half. And we also found the number of candidates that were brought to the phone screen went down by almost half. And that's the bigger problem. So actually, instead of helping improve the quality of the candidate pool, putting a lot of preferred requirements for, especially in senior roles, actually hurt the quality and diversity of the candidate pool. And that's what I want you to keep in mind as you sort of bring this to your hiring managers and help them think about. Now, mistake number 5, antiquated roles. And this happens a lot. When we think about our employer value proposition, we often think about the boilerplate, the company text. What we don't think about is even the requirements send a certain signal about your culture, about your brand. And we see this like in a software engineering role. How often have I seen they throw in like an ancient programming language as a preferred requirement, like Perl? And you're like, did we throw it in intentionally because we absolutely need it? Or did we throw it in because we copied a job from 5 years ago and posted it? And so start to ask, we've as recruiters in the room, as talent acquisition professionals, we need to be in the room asking our hiring managers to be intentional about every single thing they ask for because it reflects on our brand, because it reflects on the company culture, and it reflects on the kinds of candidates we're trying to attract in building a phenomenal engineering team. Too often I see our engineering roles may not ask for modern things like containerization, like CI/CD, and it's important to ask for it because you're also signaling that you're a more mature engineering culture and that this is going to be a lot of fun place. This is going to be a really fun engineering team to work in. Now,
I actually
mistake.
have a question on that one
Yeah.
as well. This has come up in a few customer conversations, so curious to hear your take about how to include AI in these qualifications, whether it's a tech role or a non-tech role. So, you might see on LinkedIn now the trendy thing to say is an AI native engineer, for example.
Ooh.
So how do you incorporate AI without getting cringy?
I I actually don't think it's very today. I don't think it's a good place in JDs, and it reminds me of how a few years ago people were accidentally asking for like 10 years of crypto experience or 15, like how every now and then we see a job on LinkedIn where like the person who wrote the programming language is like, I don't have 10 years of like experience in this. I only wrote it 2 years ago. We make these mistakes of sort of trying to make our jobs sound cooler or more experienced than they are. I think there's no way you can have an interview where you're not talking about AI and the way candidates are incorporating it into our processes. There's no way we're not talking about and differentiating between candidates who are leaning into this wave rather than maybe being in a vacuum. But I haven't yet found a coherent skill that we're demanding. Like if really we're demanding a certain degree of AI curiosity, then that deserves to be part of a more informed conversation, not part of this. If you're asking for a specific skill, maybe you're asking for deploying AI models in AWS. Great, ask for that. Maybe you're asking for experience with, you're a salesperson, that you've worked with specific types of AI tooling that's, the learning curve might be really high, or marketing, you've used with Jasper. Fine, but try to make it as tangible as you can. AI native just gives me the heebie-jeebies, if I'm being honest.
I saw it, I was like, ooh.
And it risks also coming across as a little ageist, if I'm being honest. Like
Yeah.
it risks coming across that we are not open to older populations. We're not considering the retraining potential about how new this technology is. So mistake number 6, not validating with market data. And this happens too often. We write jobs for ourselves. We're not writing, and it takes only a little bit of time to look up similar jobs on LinkedIn, look up similar jobs in Indeed. In fact, one of the most powerful features in Datapeople is what we call similar jobs. When you're writing a job, we show you how other companies in your talent market currently have similar jobs. So what is a candidate likely to see? So when you're hiring manager, you are sitting in that intake meeting, calibrating it. Ideally, we're looking at 4 or 5 jobs you've written in the past, 4 or 5 jobs your competitors are writing right now, and we're building a job that makes sense to candidates. Like ultimately, we want to be better. We want to be the employer of choice, and you can't be the employer of choice sitting in a vacuum. I'm going to ask you all, is this a critical part of your intake meeting? Is thinking about the labor market and thinking about how others might be writing a job, how often are we bringing that into the intake meeting? Please write it on the chat.
I see it a lot with, especially with in-office roles where the competition is even steeper of making sure that you're really sticking out from your candidate, from your competition and market calibrated properly.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really powerful. Like I was looking the other day for, there's this large telco that hires in these highly competitive markets. And when you look at, and they were asking, why are we struggling to get jobs? And when you looked at the similar jobs, they found that their competition was outbidding them on commission for these sales roles. So they were signaling twice the commission. And if you didn't pay attention, suddenly the market shifted from under you and you're wondering why you're not getting the right types of candidates, you're losing in these really highly competitive talent markets that are on site. And having a constant view to the market allows talent leaders and allows talent acquisition professionals to be genuine strategic partners of the org, which is what we all want to be, which is what we struggle sometimes to be. Now the last mistake we're going to think is not caring enough. And sometimes I think, some roles when I look at them, maybe AI should be applying to them. Maybe they shouldn't be complaining about getting bots. Too often I see a job that has, they forget to put the F in shift, and it has very, very unintentional consequences. And maybe they meant it because it is a but oh my God, don't do that. Not only is this terrible for your brand, it doesn't show up on Indeed and they'll take your money for it. So let's fix it. So I'm not surprised only 6 people applied to this job in a month. Not everybody wants to work the day shift. Uh, Other jobs, so often we'll just say sales manager instead of manager. Like we just make typos. We're sloppy. And in a large organization, it's not uncommon. It's hard to police. People are feeling this urge to rush out there, but it does hurt your employer brand. It hurts it when it goes viral. It hurts it in itself. It just shows the company is not being caring enough. And that is death knell for everything that we're putting. It only takes 10 seconds to ruin a great reputation that's taken years to cultivate. So those are 7 mistakes that we make. I want to tell you a little bit about how Datapeople solves these mistakes and how we support it. What we've built is a productivity suite. So every one of your hiring managers and recruiters can become a Don Draper, a Peggy Olson can be an advertiser. It should only take 5 minutes to write a truly incredible job ad, to convert one of your internal jobs into something fantastic, to understand how it works. And we have a lot of little features that work right in there that make it possible. And it's a lot powered by AI. It's one of the fastest ways to implement AI in your platform. One of the most used tools in most organizations we work with, where hundreds of hiring managers and recruiters are collaborating to write great job ads, and it changes your outcomes dramatically. But what makes us really differentiated from other tools is we work right in your ATS HRIS, whether you're using Workday or SuccessFactors or iCIMS or whatever your tool of choice might be. That's where your recruiters are working, and they should never have to leave. They should be able to have all of these checks, all of these helpful points, the AI collaboration happening right in there. So in 2 minutes, right in the app, right in your ATS, you're writing a job that's really not a job, but it's an advertisement for your brand, for your company, for your culture, really bringing incredible candidates into your pipe. So if this is something you're curious about, I'd love to show it to you. But also, I'd like to offer everyone in this group a free analysis of your job. We will share and we will score all of your jobs for some of these mistakes that we've talked about today and give you a report. And maybe that will help you go and fix those jobs right away and think about how you can make your jobs into incredible ads and attract the right people. I'm going to leave this all open and ask last questions, last thoughts from this audience. Anything that you are curious about learning that you didn't hear today? Alyssa, while we wait for folks to chime in the chat, I'm kind of curious. AI, can ChatGPT just do all this? Have you seen it do all this? And what does it do really well, and what does it not do so well when we're writing great job ads?
I'd say ChatGPT is a nice content person to brainstorm with. But if you actually ask it to create a job description, I have countless customers who have tried it. It never works as expected. It's never market calibrated. lots of times the skills or the qualifications aren't actually aligned with what you need in a day-to-day. Usually it winds up adding more time to the process than actually saving time. So I think, yeah,
But
I
it's such
have,
a great starting point.
yeah, but definitely not the be all end all.
What is your experience, everybody? What have you found has worked for you in your job ads, and what have you found that doesn't work for you in your job ads? Hannah, thanks for writing in. It's a great tool for grammar and spell check, but it does take too many prompts. Sometimes you're like, a job ad should only take me 2 minutes. It's taking me 15 minutes to write a prompt.
Yeah.
Well, you've been a wonderful audience. And Alyssa, you've been a really fun panelist. Thank you for joining me on this.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And it was great talking to everyone. And thanks for being a great audience.
For everyone who shared on the chat, thank you. It's just thank you for making this a fun workshop. We're going to share. Please do sign up for our compliance, our free compliance analysis and employer brand analysis, and let's help you. But until then, stay tuned for our next workshop in about a month. Until then, thanks and have a wonderful week, everybody.
Bye, friend.
Have a good one. Bye.